Great to see you. Hello there and welcome to Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Jedel Kibera. Fred Matiang'i, Dr. Fred Matiang'i is back in the country. My conversation with Prof. Manyora, it's all about his candidacy for 2027, whether it's viable, whether Fred Matiang'i can actually be the next president of this republic. Great to see you, Prof. How are you doing today?
Good.
You know, Fred Matiang'i is back and he was received in the airport with a lot of Kisii dances and Kisii singers. And I want to start from there. What outlook should Fred Matiang'i give to Kenyans? Gachagua has been receiving a lot of mtu wa mlima. What outlook should Matiang'i give to Kenya?
Of course, if you want to be Kenyan president, you must be a Kenyan in outlook. But every Kenyan president must come from someplace. So if Ruto was coming from somewhere and the Kalonzo went to welcome him with Musik, I wouldn't find anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Talk to me then about his term as a cabinet minister in Uhuru's regime. From digitization, transfer from analog to digital, education sector, you remember cheating, people were afraid of cheating in KCPE, KCSE, and you know, as Interior Cabinet Secretary, some of the things that he achieved, you know, I've just mentioned some of them. How likely is he to deliver from your...
You know, sometimes people don't even care what somebody has done. But of course, Matiang'i, even for the short time he was in lands as acting CS, he introduced a few reforms there. Making it difficult for people just to dispose of their land, especially in places like Kajiado and so on and so forth. In education sector, is most remembered for examination cheating, reforming the Kenya National Examination Council. And for many years, we have not had enough students to join universities. In fact, private universities, more than 2 programs collapsed because of that, meaning there had been a lot of exam cheating before Matiang'i and Magoha came on the scene. In ICT, he oversaw the painful, then it looked very painful. Transition from analog to digital, and he stood firm. So as Interior CS, he did a lot in terms of in the security sector. So what Matiang'i has done is enough to make somebody get elected. Because what stands out is he's a worker. He's a man who can get things done. Once he believes in something, because he was working for Uhuru, and whenever Uhuru gave him an assignment, he took that with a singleness of purpose and mind and embarked on doing the job. And he did the job well. In the second half of Uhuru's presidency, the second term, there were only 2 CS people who remember. People who don't remember Matiang'i and Mutahi Kagwe.
Yes.
You can get it.
You can get it.
You can get it.
Yes.
There was only Mutahi Kagwe
and Matiang'i.
If you ask somebody to name one Uhuru CS 2018, 2022, it's very difficult to remember them.
It will take time.
You only Matiang'i and Mutahi Kagwe. So Matiang'i has a record to speak of, but like I've said, is that enough to make somebody get elected? I doubt.
Yeah, sticking to that, is that enough to get him elected? Jeremiah Kioni, Secretary General of Jubilee, announced that he has the backing of Jubilee.
Yes.
There are talks that Uhuru supports him now because Jubilee is actually supporting him.
Yes.
What other partnerships should Matiang'i look for? Or is this a case of now everyone just going straight to the electorate without the backing of others?
No. You know, you cannot win an election without the backing of others. So the backing of Jubilee is to be celebrated from Matiang'i's camp. The backing of Uhuru cannot be taken for granted. But that's not enough. You'll have to work with other people. You'll have to be careful with a running mate. Who do you pick as a running mate? What does he bring? How do you work with other people who want to be presidents? How do you work with Kalonzo? How do you convince him it is you? How do you convince Eugene Omalo? It's not easy for him, but it's a job that one who wants to be president must do.
Why do you think his name popped up in July after or during the Gen Z protests? Why do you think that name popped up?
I think people are just looking for somebody and they were looking at the options that are available. And people, I think the Gen Zs and other people had this feeling that the sort of things that needed to be done were radical. Weak men and women would not do it. You wanted a strong man who can say no and everybody trembles and it's done. And I think this is how Matiang'i's name came up.
How would you compare him to a person from his region, David Maraga, former CJ, whose name has also popped up for Gen Zs, and Okiya Omtata too. How would you compare Matiangi to the two of them?
You see, Okiya Omtata has everything going for him. Only one box is not ticked. He's not forceful. And I think Kenyans are at a place where they want somebody forceful. Some people have been attacking me on Twitter. When I say somebody, no nonsense. That's the person people are looking for. In fact, someone said on spaces that I attended, the bus, I near the bus spaces.
Yes.
The one we have Sundays, every Sunday, every Sunday, 8 to whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody said, the things you have against Matiangi are the things that are attracting Kenyans to him. Because people are even saying, if somebody like Ruto is defeated, can he leave power?
Oh.
People say, can Ruto leave if he's defeated? We want a man who will take it from him. And that's how Matiangi comes in. So, Maraga and Omtata, despite having everything going for them, they lack that push Kenyans are looking for. Even to believe that if Ruto is defeated, he can't leave. You need a man who will take it. Because Raila wasn't taking it whenever he was winning. You know, Matiangi will take it. I warned Raila, I told him, if Ruto wins, you will not take his presidency. You remember me saying that repeatedly? I said, Raila, wewe na Uhuru, Ruto akishinda, haki ya Mungu mwezi kumunyanganya. So people are looking for a Ruto now. A Ruto of 2022 is Matiangi. If he beat Ruto, Ruto hawezi katalia hiyo kitu. Matiangi atachukua. He has the connection, the network within the security sector. As a person, he's forceful, he's no nonsense. He can go like this, face you man to man. I'll tell you, please, wewe nyumbani umeshindwa. And he has the necessary networks within the sector to be able to hold his own ground. So some of the things that are making Matiangi a little more attractive than these other people. Yeah.
But you see, for Okiya Omtata and CJ Maraga, what makes them attractive is the rule of law. And when it comes to conversation about Matiangi, I just want to read a tweet from Nelson Harvey. Fred Matiangi killed and dumped youth, men and women in River Yala, River Donyo, River Tana, Amboseli, naming Savo. Have we forgotten all that? And I also have a tweet here from Boniface Mwangi, who is an activist, saying Fred Matiangi is a thief and a murderer. He stole government land in Waraka and sold it back to the government at 1.5 billion shillings. It was under his watch where Kenyans were getting abducted, tortured, and thrown in River Yala. Electing him is bringing back Uhuru. Another no. Do you believe Matiangi can actually follow the constitution? And not just saying that, do you think we'll have another Ruto in Matiangi where we have seen the death of Gen Zs?
First of all, Harvey is a lawyer. And he knows such a general statements can only be made by laymen, not lawyers. The constitution allows Harvey and other people to prosecute Matiangi. Take the case to the prosecutor, ODPP. If they don't, they can prosecute themselves. I think so. The constitution allows for citizen arrest. Why hasn't Harvey dealt with Matiangi using the law? Because he's a lawyer. He's not just a lawyer. He's not a village lawyer. He's a serious lawyer. And I don't expect serious lawyers to make such a blanket statements that we hear from shoeshine boys and the other small boys and girls in town. Human life is sacred. You know that. Human life should not be lost under whatever circumstances. But more critically, if government can kill its people, that can be very bad. That is extremely bad. No government should be in power if it kills its citizens. But that's not to say Uhuru's government killed people or Matiangi killed people. People who live along rivers will tell you the phenomenon of bodies floating on rivers is very common. Bad as it is, suicide, accidents, criminal activities, rivalry among gangs, they kill you. So Not to say government cannot kill its people, but that is a very sensitive terrain to navigate. Other than just people saying, I as Manyora, and I'm a very informed Kenyan, I have not seen anything to convince me that there was a hand of government in it. And those saying Matiangi and Uhuru are responsible, they must be very careful. Let me not say more because we are talking about human life. And secondly, I have said this time I want to give my expert opinion, advice and help and assistance professionally at a fee.
So if Matiangi,
because if I was Matiangi,
to deal with this perception,
I can explain these things in a way Matiangi cannot. I can explain. But as a consultant, I have to train him how to talk. Because I know this is just talk. Coming from Muhavi is really bad because, you know, Kenyans have died. Don't make political capital out of death. Death is very bad. It is worse if it comes from government. But we must be able to link government to the death. Even remotely, I don't know, even remotely, if they are, it can be very bad.
So when it comes,
no government should be in power at all, and anybody associated with government who is linked to killings of human beings, nobody should even give him space to talk anywhere in the country. But to the extent that I do not know, I haven't been convinced by anybody that some of these things were done by government, then I want to rest it like that.
Could Matiangi be a project?
It's possible.
There was a time
in the politics is possible all the time.
Talk was he was running away from the country, and then he's back. I think something happened there. That is just general
always,
talk. We're talking about Shushan boys, but that is just general talk.
It is always, it's always there. It's always there. And if you want to know why, you could ask, whose project could he be? They have said it's Uhuru's project. Uhuru could be annoyed with Raila because I think Uhuru wanted to get his pound of flesh from Ruto. He wanted to score against Ruto. He wanted Ruto to go home. Maybe. And when Raila refuses, Uhuru goes back to his original plan. Remember, when Uhuru and Raila got talking, ending up with BBI, they agreed on Matiangi and Mutahi as the 2022 presidential candidate. Something happened later, and then Raila ran. But initially, Uhuru and Raila had settled on Mutahi Kagwe deputizing
Fred
Matiangi. So Uhuru could go to his option B if Raila has refused. So it could be Uhuru's project to tame Ruto.
Could he be Ruto's?
It could be Ruto's project. He could say, haka Maraga kakichukuliwa na Wakenya kataniletea shida wewe simama. He could see that a united opposition will spell doom and say, if we are going to have Matiangi and Kalonzo, hiyo ni mboga sasa. I will have them for dinner. So at all times, anybody can be a project. And there are good reasons why they will be projects. But that doesn't mean Matiangi cannot be a man of his own. He most likely is a man of his own.
If you look at all the opposition leaders out there, how likely is Matiangi to be their front runner? And how likely is he to beat Ruto if they put him to beat Ruto?
Let us start by saying that if we recreate 202, we have one candidate. That candidate stands a very big chance of beating Ruto. Let's start there. If that candidate is Matiangi, Matiangi brings something on the table. You know, even if you are supported, you must bring something on the table. There is something that Matiangi brings into the game that is a plus. So, a Matiangi candidature against Ruto, if he's the only one fronted by the opposition, I can see his game short. Matiangi also, like I've said before, would not allow anybody to play with his victory. Matiangi has the necessary networks that none of those other candidates has. Kalonzo, Eugene, Tembea, Jimmy Wanjigi, name them, Mother Karua. They don't have the networks Matiangi has.
Gachagua.
Yeah, maybe Gachagua. Yeah. Gachagua has some networks which all these others don't have. So the only person I can foresee who can go anywhere close to Matiangi can be Gachagua. He has the network, and those networks are very important in an election such as the one you shall have in 2026.
He hasn't run for any elective seat. Can Kenyans vote for him when it comes to politics?
That is his main advantage. Kenyans are sort of saying we don't want a politician. We want a worker, and Matiangi is a worker. But you see, he has the advantage of benefiting from both. When they say they don't want a politician, he's not a politician. Because he has never run for politics. He's not a typical politician. He was a technocrat as a minister. When Uhuru and Raila came, Uhuru and Ruto came, in trying to implement the constitution in a rather naive way, Kenyans thought only technocrats can work. Matiangi was the first minister they appointed. The man, you know, they came with a style in red,
yes,
white shirts and red ties.
Yes. And
the ministers' nominees were inside the room. So they were coming out. The first one to come out was Matiangi. I was also shocked. Allah, Matiangi, me, I'm known to him.
Yes.
We have worked together. We've been to many places together. Yeah. We are friends. Allah, but Matiangi, he brings something. Yes. He brings something.
So Kenyans can look at him and vote for him.
And vote for him. He brings something. If you look at him like this, there's something he brings. Now, the inability, that's why you see I'm hesitating, the inability to touch on that thing is what makes him all the more marketable. Why are people talking about Matiangi? If you ask them why, can they tell you why? Kuna kakitu na akaonekani. That is his advantage.
Well, would you vote for Fred Matiangi, Dr. Fred Matiangi, based on what the conversation that we've just had? Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye for now.